Return to office is going to be the focus of today's recording. And it follows an interesting article I read in the Wall Street Journal about Vornado, which is one of the largest kind of commercial real estate companies in the world, making an investment around Penn Station in New York. But I think to start, let's establish kind of a framework here around why people or why a cohort of workers are hesitant or there's friction to going back to the office, right? And I think what the pandemic did and what kind of the changes that companies had to make in response to the pandemic did was it shifted a lot of the what was normal for workers. And, we as human beings get used to different things. So we all got used to working from home. We all got used to kind of rolling out of bed and just kind of cracking open a laptop and doing those things where in the past it was you'd have to get up and hop in the shower and put on clothes and, get dressed up and then get in the car for, 30 minutes or whatever the commute is and get to the office. And you can kind of see, of course, the natural time saving that comes from not having to have a commute and all that stuff. But in a previous recording, we talked about what that means on the negative side, what the negative externalities are to a permanently remote kind of work arrangement. And so this article is really interesting because it highlights some of the points that we talk about at Daggerfinn around how to get people back to the office. And I think it was yesterday we talked a little bit about how downtowns in the Midwest and throughout the country are struggling to attract people back downtown, and companies need to use the same kind of framework to think about how to get people back to the office. It's one thing to make it an edict and say, everyone's just got to come back, because what you end up with is a little bit less employee engagement. You hurt satisfaction. You hurt things in the long run when you're thinking of a sustainable employer branding play. And what you need to do as employers is make the reasons you come to work enduring and make it an experience. Workers now are convinced that we can do the job anywhere, and if that's the case, then there's got to be a reason, a pull to bring people through. And just a little bit of kind of background: Vornado Realty Trust has invested something like over $1 billion to kind of build out this area around Penn Station, $1.2 billion, overhauling buildings around Penn Station, of course, in New York, which serves as a hub for a lot of the different lines that go into the city. And the company believes, of course, that this is going to be a central area where people are going to come into. And so these two buildings are important from a real estate footprint standpoint for that area. And it's interesting also because the New York chairman of the company admitted that probably office work on Friday is probably dead forever. Monday is a little bit touch and go. But he believes, and we've preached kind of the virtues of the hybrid model, that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are fair game for people to have to go into the office. And if that's the case, well, let's make sure that, that people really want to come in. And I think companies it is a little bit of a spiral down to the bottom, but really if you invest in employer branding and if you believe that, the talent pool is zero sum to a point, that every dollar that you spend on your employer brand to make yourself a more attractive place to work is one less bit of talent that goes to another company, and you can kind of hoard talent that way. And it's interesting because the photos that you're going to see on screen, which I've pulled from the Wall Street Journal article, show exactly that, where work is work, yes, one thing, but also it's an experience being in the building. There are these big screens where you can watch television with coworkers. There's areas to congregate with other people, which is one of the reasons why people like to get together anyway, to congregate, to get that kind of in-person feeling. And you've also got these really nice, it's called the library inside the Penn 1 office building, but at these really nice areas where people can go do quiet work if they need to. And so what you kind of get the sense of is, instead of these, traditional 9-to-5 cubicle kind of setup, is you get this really engaging, pleasant place to be for 8 hours of the day, 9 hours of the day. It's a place that you want to go to work to. And then you throw onto that the fact that in these places you get a chance to congregate, you can meet other people, you can do these things. And I think building on the fundamental reasons why human beings like to be together is a good way to think about the return to the office. We'll lean into those kind of attributes as to why people like to congregate, and then you have something a little bit more enduring than just an edict to tell people to come back into the office. Talent is so tricky right now with what is a really tight labor market, in that unemployment rate is so low. There's the employers are still adding jobs all the time. I mean, I think it's 2 to 3 jobs per every working professional at the moment. So employees and workers still have a lot of the leverage when it comes to the job market. And in that sense, then there is an incentive for employers to really think about the work arrangement outside of just the work itself, in terms of how to make people more engaged and satisfied and attracted to come to work. I mean, looking at these pictures, the idea of working at Penn 1 or Penn 2 it's an attractive proposition, because it just seems like a pleasant place to be for 8 hours of the day. And if you can do that, then I think you're going in the right spot. So really interesting article, really interesting kind of framing that this Vornado Trust, I mean, the massive commercial real estate player, investing a lot of money into office space in a world where you think that downtowns are failing and people just don't want to be into the office. And it's almost a play into a regression to the mean. And I'm a big believer in that. I think that's a powerful kind of idea, that over a long enough time horizon that we will revert back to the mean. And the mean probably is some sort of hybrid work arrangement, if not fully back into the office, as kind of the long tail effects or the long tail, call it, habits that we built up over the pandemic kind of fade away. It's very interesting, from a management standpoint too, because even in our firm, we've onboarded people and staff members and team members who have never worked in an office, which is, as someone who's a little bit older, is a very interesting idea, because it makes me think about ambition and different things. Coming up in my career, all I wanted to do, when you kind of go into an office building every single day and you see the corner offices and you see you have these things to reach for, these targets that you want to aim for. And if you spend all day, as a younger worker at home, and you don't look around and say, there's people that I want to be in this context, then it really does play on what I think is engagement in a company, how engaged people get to the work, how engaged people are with each other, how willing they are to help each other, for example, because you don't have that kind of empathy to see people working hard all day and needing help. So a regression to the mean, I think, is probably appropriate, and is what will happen in the long term. If I were to make a prediction, say 5, 8, 10 years from now, it won't look the way it is right now. I don't think that remote is going to be a big thing. An interesting conversation I've had recently with an executive is around the shift in the way people make money, the way people make a living. And I'm probably not at a luxury to share the details of the story, but the main idea that this individual shared with me was that the way people make money has changed. I mean, we've got these alternative careers, is what I called it when we were talking on the phone, where people can make money doing things like YouTube streaming, or doing things like selling knickknacks, or doing things like that, and really cobble it together enough to make a living. And it'll be interesting in the world of AI, with the disruption around AI, whether that people lean more into that alternative kind of way to make a living, or if we go back to the traditional 9 to 5, which kind of side of the seesaw wins out long term, I think it's going to be interesting to see. But my prediction, if I were to make a prediction, is that there's so much work to be done in the world. There's so much important work to be done, and so much collaborative work to be done, that I think that there's a magic to being in person. There's a magic to being around like-minded people striving towards a goal, that a more permanent return to the office, I think, is what's going to be waiting for everybody on the other side.